are working on our pants. We are still working on pattern 9050, and we are now going to work on steps number 16 through 19. So we're putting the pants legs together. So what we have already done is we've put the pockets together. So our front legs and our back legs are all ready to go. So you should already have, no matter what view you've done, you should have the pockets done. So I'm going to lay this out so that it makes sense, because we are starting with step number 16, and we've just finished step number 16, so now we're going to start with step number 17. So I am going to take my two rights, my two fronts, and I'm going to put them to one side, and I'll put my two backs and I'll put them to one side. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to take one front and I want you to take one back, and you have to match them so that because we're going to sew that inner leg together. So you have to find the pair that goes together. So first lay down your two fronts on your table or on your wherever you're working, so that on the table, I'm going to move everything out of the way, you should have your two fronts facing up. So if you can't, I have a reflection, but I have my two front legs and they're facing up, so my pockets are looking at me. So I have my pocket here and my pocket here, and you can see I have the outline of the pocket here. So then I'm going to take my two backs pieces and I'm going to face them. So I have my back pocket, and so it's going to be with right sides together. I'm going to place this one will go to this leg, and this one's going to go to this leg, because I want those curves to be facing each other. So I've got, and you can look at your pattern instructions so that it should look like the pattern instructions. So now I'm going to just pin and work with one leg right now. So I've got my curve. See how that matches? My right sides are facing, so my pockets are facing each other. And I'm going to pin just the inner leg. So I'm going to match that crotch seam, and I'm going to match the lower leg, and I'm going to pin just down that leg. So I'm going to do that. And you match your notches. And in between, then I'm going to come down here and I'll match down at the lower leg. And in between. So all the way up. And once I have that pin, I'm going to go ahead and sew that. Now you can, if you want to, you can sew you can pin the other leg, but know that you are not sewing that curve. You're just sewing the leg, the length of that inner leg, just like it. Look at the picture that you have on your pattern directions, and I'm sewing that at 5/8 of an inch, and I'm back stitching at the top and the bottom. So when I start and stop that seam, so 5/8 of an inch, and I remove my pins as I go, and I'm going to get down to the bottom. And I'm going to I just stitched that leg seam, nowhere else. Did not do the crotch. So when I look at it, I have this U shape, and that leg is stitched. And now I'm going to finish this seam somehow. You can pick however you want to do it. If you have a serger, serge it. If you have a pair of pinking shears, you can use pinking shears, or you can use one of the stitching techniques that we did a couple weeks ago, like the flat felled, the welt seam, any of those. But you want to finish it so that when you put it in the washing machine, it is finished. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do my other leg, and then I will meet you back here when I'm done. Okay, so I've sewn both my inner legs seams, and I finished those seams. So now I'm on step 18. So what I'm going to do is we are going to sew this U shape, this crotch seam. So I need both my legs, and I'm going to place them with right sides together. So as I place them with right sides together, I'm going to match them up. So what it should look like is I've got a leg, and it should have, one leg should be a front leg and a back leg. And then I'm going to place on top of that a front leg and a back leg. And this one that I'm placing on top, the back goes to the back, and the front goes to the front. And I'm going to start here in the center with my pins, and I'm going to match that center seam, and that's where I'm going to put my first pin. Then I'm going to match up the leg, the crotch, sorry, not the leg, but the crotch, and it should match all the way up to the top. That notch should match. And all the way down. Then on the other side of that U, I'm going to match that notch. And then I need some more pins. I'm going to match to the top of that curve. And then I'm going to sew that with a 5/8 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and end of that curve when I start and when I finish. So we're going to do that. And take out my pins as I go. This seam's going to be a little bit harder to finish only because it's curved, but you still can. You can still do a flat felled or a welt seam, or you can use your pinking shears, and if you have serger, that's the easiest way to finish that seam. And we're finishing the seam because it strengthens that seam. That crotch seam gets a lot of stress on it as you bend or walk, or it does get a lot of stress. But you also want to finish it because as it goes through the washing machine, it will unravel. So okay, so I've done that. So now I'm gonna finish that seam, and then we'll press it. So I'm gonna do this on my serger. So my serger is right here, and it'll only take me a second. And now here's where we are going to, we need to sew our last step, which is 19. So what we're going to do is we're going to open these up, these legs up, and we are going to sew them with right sides together. So we're going to open up these legs, and I want you to position it so that the waist is facing each other, and they should look like a pair of pants. So we're going to shake them out, and then we're going to pin down the legs, but make sure that you are looking at it so that the right sides are facing each other, and you are pinning it so that the wrong side is facing out. So you are always going to sew, you're always sewing with the right sides together, and we are just lining up those edges together. So pin your pants legs with the edges even. So I'm going to pin down that leg. And as far as when we're done sewing this leg, you know, I've asked you to finish the seams. It's a little harder to finish the outside leg on a pair of pants unless you have a serger or you have a pair of pinking shears. You can do a flat felled seam and just try to sew it as far down from the top as you can, and then sew as far up from the bottom as you can. That does work. And so these are pretty baggy pants, and you can, you know, that's a great way to do it. I'm not making you finish that outside seam, but I think it's really is beneficial. It makes your clothing last longer. Makes your you really want your clothes to look as good from the inside as they do from the outside. So I'm going to sew that 5/8 of an inch, and you're gonna back stitch at the top and back stitch at the bottom. To do the other side. So I've got to pin that other side, and then once you do that, then you can decide to how you're gonna finish those seams, and then that is your pant legs. They should look like a pair of pants, and you should be super excited now because you just made what looks like a pair of pants. And I don't know if you've ever made anything before that, you know, a garment, but you should be excited. So I will see you on the next step where we do the waist.